We don't get to do a lot of Megyn Kelly. I might not even do the whole thing because even she seems bored of her actual stuff. But I will say what a lovely filter system she's got going on. It's very impressive. I feel like here. Let's see if I can. Here, I think I have that exact filter. Yeah, I look great. Yeah. Wow, I look just like Megyn Kelly, only darker. It's so wonderful to see you again. Oh, Megyn. Oh, Megyn. Oh, Megyn. Yeah, I love using, I got the same filter she has, and it just makes me look so lifelike. One of these days, I'm going to be a real boy. Oh. I don't want to watch this though, because I know I'll find it upsetting.
Back to our friend Noam, who runs the Comedy Cellar and does a great podcast and somehow managed to get Philip Bump of the Washington Post. He's the writer, quote, focused largely on the numbers behind the politics, according to his bio.
Here's it. No BS, no agenda, no fear. Subscribe. Wait, how long do you think before we check off all three of those? I think it's fear. Well, BS might be right out of the gate. Maybe we even don't see it because it's such bullshit. It's, it's beyond knowing. It's just because she'll say, I think. And she didn't really think that way. So it's, okay, BS. And then obviously there's an agenda. So fuck off. And then no fear. What do you think this is all going to be fear mongering? All of it.
But he loses all ability to analyze anything when it reflects poorly on Joe Biden and his potential corruption. So we have a couple of sound bites from the interview, including where, and he had gone on, I think Noam had openly said, I want somebody to come on and debate with me whether there's evidence that Joe Biden is potentially corrupt and, how high this Hunter Biden scandal goes. He was looking for somebody who would disagree with him. I think Noam sees corruption and he's troubled, and he was looking for somebody in the press who would disagree with him. And Philip went on, and it didn't go very well. It did not go well for Phil.
Wait, I didn't hear. Where was this offer? Why didn't I get to go on?
Here's the first soundbite in which Phil is trying to defend Joe Biden on the claims of corruption. Sought to.
This is so silly. So then find me evidence that Joe Biden acted on behalf of Burisma when he called for the firing of Shokin. Find me evidence of that. And there is none.
I'm getting
I just don't want to, yes, okay, if you want to nitpick and pick out specific isolated snippets of conversation between Devin Archer and Tucker Carlson, who's the least good faith actor in the history of human journalism, fine, great.
First of all, I love this guy's Muppet voice. I think he's missed his calling, and he needs to be covered in felt immediately.
We can have this conversation, but it's not getting to the point. And the point, I thought, was to evaluate this charge that Joe Biden had acted corruptly in regard to Shokin and Burisma. And there's no evidence of that. And Devin Archer's own sworn testimony undercuts your argument, regardless of his using the word spun or fed.
Why didn't you play the answer? Right, and?
Okay, so that's number one. There's no evidence that Joe Biden was acting on behalf of Burisma. First of all, that's just misstating the argument, right? It's just
okay, that's just misstating the argument. Okay, nobody said that. Of course, they say that all the fucking time. It's the root of the argument, Megyn.
Straw man. That's not what people, not on behalf of Burisma, but on behalf of his own self-interests and those of his son.
For Burisma, because Burisma asked for it and his son was making money, and it goes through that. Again, this is splitting straws.
In pushing for the firing of this prosecutor. That's the allegation. Not that he was working for Burisma, but that he was influenced by what would benefit his son and what would benefit himself.
And what would benefit the entire United States of America and the taxpayer and the World Bank and the WTF and the Obama administration by who he was working for at the time on that particular task.
Potentially. In pushing out this prosecutor in Ukraine who was going after Burisma for...
Nope. See, we'd hit it sooner. BS. I call BS. was not going after Burisma. Again, Shokin had a scam that he worked with everybody, which was start an investigation, put it on the shelf. If you don't pay him, he takes the folder off the shelf and puts it on somebody's desk. It's easier to pay the graft. It's part of life over there. So Shokin just had a machine. This is how it worked. He was Petro Poroshenko's kid's godfather. They were connected.
Corruption, and his son was sitting on the board of Burisma at the time. So Emily, that's how he misframes it, first of all, to make it better for his side, which is a mark of dishonesty.
Just like you did.
And then secondly, he wants like the smoking gun. He wants.
Yes. This is the president of the United States, where the former president, we just heard an audio recording that he has copped to is actually his voice. This is not a deep fake or even a concern it's a deep fake. He brags about the contents of it, where he is holding up classified documents, showing them to people without the necessary classification or access to those documents, and saying, I could declassify these if I was president, but I'm not anymore, putting a lie to everything he said about every fucking document that he has at Mar-a-Lago. And that's the standard. That qualifies. That's a smoking tape. That's a smoking recording, as it were. But when you go after Biden and you're like, it's everywhere. There's so much corruption. It's all over the place. You can't walk around fucking DC without tripping over some goddamn Biden corruption. And yet you can't show me any.
The email of the Burisma CEO saying, Mr. Vice President, please go get this corrupt prosecutor off of our backs because we would like to be corrupt ourselves on an ongoing basis and pay our money to you and your son. So please help us out. Like, that's not generally the way corruption works. But if you look.
Well, I'll tell you what, as soon as it works that way, then you can claim that you have evidence.
Through the actual evidence of what led up to the firing of that prosecutor, you will see very clearly, we went through it just last week on the show.
Where was I? I've gone through this before. Shit, now I got to go back and look at her fucking video on it. All right, well, CSL, we'll see if we can find it, and I'll go through her whole fucking argument. I'd go through it, and I don't even trust that they cut the segment out yet. We're going to have to go hunt for it.
That it was not State Department policy nor the plan to call for the firing of that prosecutor. And as recently as
Oh, right. Okay. We've seen this before. This is the concept that not everybody was for it, so that meant everybody was against it. And part of the corruption team that Biden was working with, there were like two people going, I don't think it'll help. Okay, well, I'll look at the actual video, but we've covered this from other people saying it. That's the defense. It dies, of course, the moment you watch the tape of Biden talking at the Council on Foreign Relations, where he says, call him about Obama.
1 month before Joe Biden had determined he was going to do it, it came to us a surprise by anybody in the Obama administration that Joe Biden was about to make this guy's termination a deal term, a requirement for our giving aid to Ukraine. It seemed
some people were surprised the guy was still there.
To be the vice president's office that turned it, that said, you know what else? We need that guy gone. And what was happening just as the vice president turned it? He had phone calls with his son, Hunter, who was on the Burisma board. And then in December of 2019, they had a meeting.
December of 2019. My guess is she means 2016 and she turned the number upside down. But if she means 2019, I would stack this up as another piece of bullshit. Of course, I have a big hole in my memory. Who was president in 2019?
That he personally spoke with the head of Burisma, who we understand said, "Get this guy off my back," or said something to that effect. So this is what we've been.
He said this in 2019, did he?
Learning so far. You know, it's
in 2019 when he was in hiding because he was being prosecuted in absentia in Ukraine because he'd fled.
It's not smoking gun right there pointing at the dead body, but it's getting pretty close.
And that's the thing with influence peddling, is that it's strategic. It's set up this way so that there never is a smoking gun.
I don't know. I think the Saudi sovereign wealth fund that Jared set up is a smoking gun. They should have just called it the smoking gun wealth fund.
instance, unless there is literally a recording of Joe Biden at Cafe Milano or on.
Hi, fuckwad, Federalist lady. Comer's promised there are recordings. I wait for them with bated breath. Greg Kelly said sometime between the 5th of September and the end of October, around there, generally. We're going to hear them.
On the golf course with the Burisma executives, everyone has plausible deniability and can just say, we were just golfing. We were just having martinis at Cafe Milano. So, nothing to see here, which is exactly what Philip Bump is doing. Because as much as you can tie this to Hunter and he.
Hang on a second. Hold on. Let's see. Source of the post, Biden usually eats at table 100 is also used on the second floor. Probably this is the Post. I'm looking at a Post article right now. I think this might be related. This is this one says 2015 for this part of it. This is the inside the secret restaurant lair where Joe Biden met Hunter's cronies. After a half century working in the swamp, they know this way straight to my heart, don't they? So when the vice president does clandestine dinner meetings with some of his sons, cronies, he did it in a very private room, Cafe Milan, according to records found on Hunter's laptop. Dinner with Vadim Pasharsky, an executive of Ukrainian energy company, took place in the restaurant's garden room, April 2015. According to a dinner with Vadim Pasharsky with Joe or just Hunter? Okay. Source posted. Okay. Biden's also have said to have met with them and former at Milano. That's after. That's 2017. A source told that Biden usually eats at table 100. Used the pricey Italian eater's private wine room on the second floor, where power players go for privacy. Where they met with his at his son's request. This is the 2017 thing. Milano's been known as the okay. This is. Notice how they're not. Yeah, they're not showing. Yeah, there's a reason they're not showing picture or they're not dating this. This is 2017. I want to say. Canceled opera star Placido Domingo once he targeted assassination plot in 2011 when hitmen plotted to kill Milano regular Adele El Jaber at the restaurant was dubbed the second White House cafeteria by Page Six. It's considered the Capitol's ultimate lair for political and media powers and other elites. It doesn't exactly garner 5-star reviews. First-time visitor Milano can be surprisingly disappointed. I figure you have presidents, vice presidents. It'd be a great place. People watch, find food. Instead, my wife and I found it more like a Cirque du Soleil on an off night. There's Tom Cruise eating there. Okay. It's a fancy pants room. So what? Which means everybody goes there, which means you can't draw from many. Oh, fucking hell. But again, this picture is from 2017. The dinner they're talking, she says 2019. And this one, where was this? Took place. Okay, this Hunter Biden brought VP Joe to dinner with shady business partners. This is, Vice President Cosmic Business and Hunters. The dinner on April 16th, 2015 was held in the private garden room at Cafe Milano at Georgetown, where the world's most powerful go. The next day, Hunter received an email from, Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to DC and getting an opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together. It's really an honor and a pleasure. At the time, Burisma was paying him $83,000. Guest list prepared by Hunter 3 weeks before included Yelena Baturina, the woman who gave the money to Devin Archer, and her husband, corrupt Moscow Mayor Yuri Lushkov, who has since died, clearly from the food. Baturina to Rosemont Seneca Thornton LLC, a Delaware reform co-founded by Hunter and Devin Archer, a former advisor to a former advisor to Secretary of State John Kerry. I see. So this is the Post trying to make Devin Archer sketchy because he's with John Kerry. The wires were flagged in suspicious. Okay, that's the money. But told guests before the dinner that his father would be attending. In one email, he appears in his role. Okay, the reason for this dinner is ostensibly to discuss food security. Dad will be here, but keep that between us for now. Thanks. Everything is between us. All good. I know you mentioned your dad would probably join dinner as well. Dinner raised a question about how much Joe knew. We claim ignorance. Blah blah blah. Thanks for inviting me there. Mexican ambassador represents the World Food Program. We're also at the guest. Oh, okay. That's it, the World Food Program. So Hunter was the head of the World Food Program for a while. 3 seats for your Kaiser friend, 2 seats for your Landon husband, 2 seats for me, 3 seats for World Food Program USA people, Vadim, 3 ambassadors, total 14. And I said 3 ambassadors, total 14. I see. It's unclear if everyone on Hunter's list attended, including his dad. Obviously, save a seat for your guy and mine if he's in town. I think your guy's there's no trouble in his worth unless you have some other idea. Archer's guy was Secretary of State John Kerry or somebody else. The World Food Program person said, "What a wonderful evening, productive, thank you." So, yeah, that's when he was running the World Food Program thing. All right, well, fuck off with this. Back to where we were. And again, it's from the laptop, so cut and paste job.
He does concede. He's like, you know what? I think Hunter was doing some stuff that was improper. So unless you can take that further step and go to Joe Biden, the media can continue to say, nothing burger, nothing much to see here.
Yep. Yeah, I can keep saying that. Also, I can continue to say there is no Hunter Biden laptop, but feel free to prove me wrong.
And it's actually, I mean, the way Noam sets this up, which I think is brilliant, is he's just like casually destroying Philip Bump. And there's something in the media called
So casually that no one notices.
nut picking, where, you know, you go
It's called what now?
Casually destroying Philip Bump. And there's something in the media called nut picking.
Yeah, you don't do that. I mean, is that something you do to yourself or to somebody else? Or
where, you know, you go to the Iowa State Fair, find the craziest person and have some like Harvard educated journalists debate them on economic policy, whatever.
Oh, I see. So this is how they catch maggots.
It is. This is the exact
This is what Libs of TikTok does, you could argue.
opposite of that, because Noam starts the podcast by saying, I asked my friend, who is the smartest person who disagrees with me on Joe and Hunter Biden? And they said it was you, Philip Bump. And he just casually destroys Philip Bump's argument and shows where he's wrong, calmly, casually throughout the entire like 1 hour of this podcast. And Philip Bump is an absolutely...
Well, then why didn't you show that clip? Why did you just show the part where... I mean, wouldn't that make sense? Why not show the clip where he's like, actually...
like precious commodity in Washington, D.C. media circles. He's seen as somebody who is at the top of his field, somebody who is really smart, and he is not willing to say that there is evidence that Joe Biden is tied to this scheme, despite the fact that, again, we all know there's not going to be a check from Burisma to Joe Biden, and the memo line is going to say firing Victor Shokin. Nobody thinks that's what's going to happen.
Right, but you need something even more... If that's not the case, then A, you got to set everybody up in the first place and stop saying shit like there's evidence abounds when it fucking well doesn't. There's not even another house we don't know about. Hey, remember Trump's Chinese bank account that magically had $17 million in it and then he took $15 million out a couple of weeks after he got rid of TPP? Remember that? That actually happened. That was a Trump withdrawal from a Chinese bank account after he killed the TPP, which was a trade policy of the United States, a trade pact by the United States to stiff arm Chinese hegemony in the South China Sea, where they were attempting to choke off every other country there, plus Australia. Remember that? That's pretty direct. Is it too much to ask that there's at least something remotely close to that?
Right.
It's the optics, which is the entire root.
Ah, I see. That's the problem. It's the optics, guys. There's like the optics. We got to keep working the optics angle
of influence peddling in the first place. It's just
does it matter that the firing of Shokin benefited Ukraine as a country? That it actually furthered the anti-corruption push in the country? Does that matter? Does that factor in at all? Or is that just cover. It's that fucking clever.
Just being able to get, as we were talking about in the last segment, those White House visitor logs, the guest list for these parties that you can't do if you're Joe Schmo. You can't monetize that if you're Joe Schmo, because you can't get, your dad's Gmail, which who knows if that's even secure, to say, hey, look who's coming and look what do they do. You don't get that if you're Joe Schmo, but you get it if you're Hunter Biden.
It's so
Yeah, you get it if you're Don Jr., if you're Eric, if you're Ivanka, if you're fucking Jared. And you might be onto something accidentally.
true. And Eliana, Noam had Philip Bump on the ropes the whole time.
Then show that. Show that clip. Is that the clip? Is that what we're supposed? Is that what a? I mean, I know you're enjoying it, but fucking show me one moment.
It ended with Bump getting up and walking out, which is pretty spectacular. Because I have to say, the questioning, while smart, was not aggressive. It wasn't,
Maybe he was just tired of the bullshit, or he felt insulted. You could play this, maybe. It's an hour-long thing. You can't find one fucking clip that shows the guy dunking on him, because the one clip you're showing me is just the argument, which I agree with.
he made a fool out of himself by getting
Great. He made a fool out of himself by going on the fucking thing. And
up and walking out. It just showed how thin-skinned and egg-shelled this guy is. He's not used to having to answer any questions of his sweeping defenses of the
show me one of the questions. Show me one of the questions. Let's break it down. Let's fucking go through the paperwork of it.
Biden's. Here's a little bit of that moment in Salisbury.
Okay.
What do you take from the text message to his adult daughter, Hunter's text message, that I have to give 50% of my income to Pop?
I have no idea what that means. I don't. I have no idea what that means.
Well,
I know it's circumstantial evidence, and you prefer that.
Here's what I would say. You don't even know it's real. How do you know it's real? A, metadata, or it didn't happen. So let's just start there. Secondly, my read on it is that at the height of his addiction, the family he's the richest guy in the family. His dad isn't making shit tons of money. So he's paying for schools and other stuff for the other relatives, are expected to, because he's supposedly making millions of dollars a year. And also, at one point, the parents made him put half of his money in an account so he wouldn't snort it all. That was another concern. My biggest question is, and we've dealt with this before, what bagman says to the Godfather, why do I have to give you the bag?
What could it be?
I have no idea.
But
I don't know.
Well,
I appreciate your.
Has anybody asked her?
I don't know. I don't know.
Don't you think somebody should ask her?
Okay.
No. You don't get to bug people based on fabricated emails and text messages you cannot prove are real. And it is not the responsibility of everybody else that if I draft up a bunch of fake texts and I hold them up and go, did you say this? You go, I didn't say that. Prove it. Let me see your phone. That's the answer. That's fucking ridiculous. Nobody lives like that. Also, 50% of his income ain't a lot.
Okay. I'm not. I just said I don't know, and I don't know what to make of it, so I have nothing to say about it.
Yeah,
what do you want me to say?
Yeah, but you say there's no evidence, but then there's a text message where he says, I give Pop 50% of my money.
No. That's not the allegation. See, this is the slippery part. That's not what it says. I think it says 50% of your income. 50% of my money, first of all, means it ain't Biden's money. Who the fuck thinks if your dad is the only reason you have a job on a board someplace, that you give him any shit about taking half of it? How would you even fucking bitch about that? You just go, yeah, I got to give half of it, I mean, the text message should have said something if it was even close to a smoking gun kind of statement. It should have said something along the lines of, well, don't get into business, with him or whatever, because you'll think you'll be making $100 and you're really making 50. That would be the theory. None of this points to anything other than everybody in the family having to pay for shit, or his parents locking up half his money in a trust because he's got kids and he's got a wife at the time, and they're worried he's going to snort it all.
That's evidence.
Okay, well, what?
No, it's not.
Okay, fine.
So
It's evidence. I appreciate you having me on.
it doesn't. That something like that. Who do you think is being more? I listen to that and I'm saying,
Am
okay,
I? What,
you can free to go.
I feel you want me to leave, like just walk out in the middle of this,
You
because
can
that
go.
way you can like.
You can go.
All right.
Is this a standard? Really, this is the way the Washington Post handles people who disagree
Yeah, when,
with
when
them.
I agree to be on for 45 minutes,
Go,
and then
go.
I get on for an hour and 15. Yeah,
Go,
that after a while
go,
I go.
go,
Thanks for having.
Oh my God, Elliot.
Oh my God. He stayed an extra half an hour, and he just couldn't even deal with that fake text message from that Rudy Giuliani used to print out and hold up.
Donna, I'm so embarrassed for him. I have secondhand embarrassment.
I'm like of two minds about this, Megyn.
I'm of two minds, Megyn. One, I don't know why I have no personal effects on my furniture. It's just a thing. They're very strict around here. They only allow me to have a water purifier, and if my desk has any, I can have one framed picture, or I'm fired. Also, they have this person who comes in and raises one of my blinds just a little bit, but I'm not allowed to open the window. Anyways, what?
Honestly, like, if Philip Bump is the smartest person who and the most qualified person who believes in Joe Biden, that's like a bad sign for Joe Biden. Just for
the record, I would like to say I did not hear the offer was a thing. Now, I don't live in D.C. or in New York, so I think he did it in New York. He wanted somebody in town to come in and sit down in the cellar in their podcast room. I'll do it remotely, gladly. Everybody, let this fuck know. Send him this clip afterwards. I'm glad to do it. I'll walk him through all of it. And then all I ask is that he has printouts of the metadata from the texts and the emails to go along with the printouts from articles of secondhand fake emails and texts. That's all. I'm kidding. I'll do it without. He doesn't have to have all that stuff because it doesn't exist.
your listeners who don't live in the Beltway, like Emily and me, I mean, Philip Bump is not a reporter. He's a political commentator who, blogs on the Washington Post website. He's not out there like breaking stories, as evidenced by the.
Yes. Right now I'm on the beat of empty offices. A thing or not? We'll see.
Total and utter lack of curiosity evinced during this interview, where I think typical people, when confronted with that sort of information, would say, yeah, that's interesting. Like, that's pretty damning text message. And I would.
No, it's not. It actually, that text message, fuck me. We talked about this back when Rudy Giuliani was doing it on his common sense thing, and he was holding up printouts of it. God damn it. It's exactly the opposite. Because if the allegation is that the big guy running things is Joe Biden, and Hunter is just the bag man, and he's bringing the money in for the family, and Biden is controlling his drug addicted son and putting him in this situation so that he could make a bunch of money and blah blah blah, then why is he bitching about having to give the money? Why would anybody bitch about that? What he's talking about is paying his niece's fucking tuition at that point because he's mad. And he's got another deal that fell through because all of his deals are predicated, including the CEFC deal, including the one he was trying to do with Slavchevsky at one point, which was do business in the United States. I'm trying to bring foreign business, do business in the United States, not this shit out here. I don't want to live in fucking Ukraine. I don't want to live in Russia or in Macedonia or in fucking China. I want to live in the United States. Do your business here. I'll run your business here. At which point, by the way, those companies would be under the umbrella legally of the SEC, of American law. That's what he was shooting for. All those deals, every fucking one of them. And he got pissed off. You could see him when he said, "I'm sitting here with my father, and if this shit doesn't happen, blah blah." That whole thing, which again I question its validity, but the idea that he would you yell at your blackmailer that way. Or you yell at the people who are bribing you about doing something on their end. Who the fuck are you bribing? Right? How do you yell at Are you bribing them? In which case, the Bidens have control over the Chinese? Is that the part where it's fucking stupid? But the idea that, like, you'll have to, hope you don't have to give Pop half your money. No bagman says it's their money. It eats the whole fucking argument. And it amazed me back then that they keep bringing it up.
Curious what they're referring to. The problem, I think, is that Philip
is referring to paying everybody's goddamn tuition. Because it was like $50,000 at a pop.
Bump's attitude in this interview is indicative pretty much of the rest of the mainstream media.
Oh my God, these mainstreams in the media.
And that's where we sort of run into a...
You're on, excuse me, you're on the Megyn Kelly show right now. She's on Sirius XM. I don't know if you noticed that. There's a little giveaway. Perhaps you can't see that floating there because that's not actually physically in your space. It's not like a little cyber bee floating around letting you know what channel you're on. You can see the back of it and it's in 3 dimensions or something. But that would be a mainstream way to consume your media. By the way, as is YouTube.
Problem. The Biden White House has lied repeatedly, not just to the American people about Joe Biden's relationship to Hunter Biden, what
Yeah, I don't even think he's his son.
they discussed about Hunter Biden's business, directly about Hunter Biden's business, what money he did and didn't take. They've lied to the press about this. And the press has not gotten their dander up about the lies that the bald-faced lies that the White House, Joe.
Also, no, you have not caught them in some sort of bald-faced lie that they've talked about business in a way that they shouldn't when he shows up at a meeting and glad hands with people. Sorry. Like, I don't even need a smoking gun at this point. I need a receipt for bullets. How about that? Just bust up the alibi. Why don't you?
Biden himself, his aides, the White House press secretary have told them in the same way that they have gotten their dander up when it was the Trump White House that lied to them. And I think that's...
Well, at least, you know what? Wait, guys. Congratulations. A little bit of progress. She admits the Trump White House lied. There you go. Yeah. That's a moment. She deserves I don't know, some free merch. How about this? There's a new Trump shirt that he's been selling. No, that's not. I don't think that's. I think it's going to be a big seller. Or okay. Anyways, back.
Where we run into a problem and the sort of emotionality, like you can see Bump getting.
The emotionality, fucking hell. We're going to talk about what you think of his emotional state when he's tired of talking circles with this asshole.
Angry and irritated.
After he stayed an extra half hour for a 45-minute podcast and this dickhead's just walking around in circles and asking him about stuff that he can't verify, no one can. So he's like, I don't know. I don't know anything about that. I can't comment on it. That's how an actual reporter works, dum-dum.
Is the way you get, like, when you're emotionally invested, when you're on a team.
Yes.
And
well,
yeah, team truth, maybe. That didn't occur to you? Team no bullshit?
said.
Like, the mainstream media, they had that kind.
Hi, Megan. I don't think you watched this clip, or maybe somebody in your staff did at this point. I'll gladly walk you through all this bullshit. Honestly. I'll even do it. How about this? I'll even do it using a Washington Post article where they wrote about how they allegedly authenticated the Hunter Biden laptop when they fucking didn't. They had an article. How the Washington Post authenticated the Hunter Biden laptop. A thing they never saw. And they only received a 4th gen copy of a hard drive named laptop where folders had been added after the fact by Rudy Giuliani. And they had forensic people look at that, technicians look at that hard drive to authenticate a laptop that never existed. Now, I'll walk you through all that shit. And I promise between now and then that I will not use any AI generated, compromising photos of you and Rudy Giuliani and an oversized turnip as part of my display. Yeah, the Washington Post referred to that hard drive as a forensic nightmare. Thanks for pointing that out, Dr. 13. A forensic nightmare. Now, why would someone cite documents printed on office paper in their own printer with no metadata for the source of it from a hard drive that everyone who actually looks at it says, I can't know, and nor can anyone know the source of any of these documents? That's what you're going to rest this whole fucking thing on.
Kind of emotional investment in going after Trump, in nailing their guy. And
well, I got to say, maybe, I don't know what it was that set him off. Maybe it was the bilking charities and having to pay $2 million in fines back to charities while lying about taking charity funds and using them to fucking change the light fixtures and buy a painting of himself in his fucking golf courses. Maybe that's what disgusted him about Trump, and he just had a chip on his shoulder about that motherfucker ever since. Maybe, just maybe, the guy's got a woman in his life. I don't know, a daughter, a wife, a friend, a mother, that he was like, you know what? The idea that this motherfucker would randomly walk up and grab him by the pussy and just think that's okay and think it's all right because he's a star and all that kind of stuff kind of pisses me the fuck off. And I'm even more irritated, pre-presidency even, that I couldn't just walk up and knock the fuck out of him because he's a litigious ass. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's the fact that he was fucking Stormy Daniels when Barron was 4 months old. Maybe that's what did it. Maybe he's an oldie but a goodie. Maybe the thing that he got him emotionally invested in not liking Trump and wanting to get Trump is that he's old enough to remember when Trump and his fucking dad were denying the ability for black people to rent in their buildings, and they were sued by the Department of Justice. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's the umpteen stories of him like barging in on like Miss Teen USA girls when they're undressing. Maybe it's just the fact that the dude partied with Jeffrey Epstein for 2 fucking decades and wants you to believe, I didn't see anything untoward. He just liked younger looking girls, I think. Guy knows how to party. Maybe it was because he hired as an attorney in one of the impeachments a guy who got multiple massages at Jeffrey Epstein's fucking house. And he partied with Jeffrey Epstein for 2 fucking decades. And when Jeffrey Epstein was finally arrested, he was president when he died in prison. Maybe that's it. I don't know why anybody would. What's not to like about Donald fucking Trump? Maybe he knows some trans people and thinks they'd serve amazingly well in the armed forces because they care about this country and they want to fight for their own freedoms. Meanwhile, Trump is making this motherfucking joke that trans women are beating women in sports and they're fucking lifting, doing all this fucking mimey bullshit about how strong they actually are and they're lifting, they're breaking records, bing, 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 and yet doesn't think they can fight in the armed forces some reason because he's got this idea of like, this Corporal Klinger, everybody's bullshitting idea about trans. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's the fact that he brought in his daughter and his son-in-law to work in the White House fucking gratis, and they walked out afterwards with a $3 billion Saudi fucking wealth fund, which included, by the way, the investment in Donald Trump being part of the LIV golf thing and them happening at all his properties to guarantee him a baseline fucking income. Maybe it's, you know what? This last one might be a little close to home. Maybe, just maybe, let's see if I can, hold on, let's go back to, I don't want to miss it. Maybe, just maybe, it's, you don't have a soul. There we go. Maybe, just maybe the thing that he's emotionally invested in, Megyn. And this, I'm going to end on this because I went long tonight anyways, and I appreciate you guys hanging out. Please like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. Patreon.com/AlSparks. Maybe, Megyn, maybe the thing that he's emotionally invested in why he fucking can't stand Trump. And he's got an emotional reaction to this fucking creep is because he at one point alluded to you being on your period because you asked him tough questions. Wouldn't that be ironic? Wouldn't it be ironic if the thing that really switched that guy's light on about, like, you know what? Fuck this guy. I don't even like her, and I certainly don't like Fox News, but that's fucked up. That ever occur to you? Maybe that's it, Megyn. Maybe that was the thing. Bleeding out of her, whatever. That's right. Blood coming out of who knows, right? Remember that? Maybe that was it. Maybe that's why he's got a dog in this fight. Maybe just as a man, I know I had my reaction to it. I was pissed when I heard him say it. I was grossed out. I don't like you. I don't like your show. I don't like the network you were on. Apparently neither did you. I was offended by how they treated you and why you had to leave. But I also am enough of a man to be fucking disgusted by that guy referring to you in that way. So maybe that's why. Maybe why, you know, by the time Trump gets busted for fucking anything, of all the shit he's done, he's getting a tiny fucking sliver of the justice he deserves. Other than that, I have no opinion. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe, you know what I mean? Go back to defending him. By the way, nice background. I'm sure Trump won't make a joke about it. That said, thank you, audience. Sorry I had to go off on that rant and I couldn't finish the video. I just don't care enough about their attitude about this ridiculousness to give a fuck about the rest of the conversation, because it's the big complaint is apparently nobody is interested in going after Biden. There's just a lack of curiosity. Why won't they dig deeper? I'll tell you why. Maybe they're just lazy because all the evidence against Trump is fucking all over the place, and they're too busy wading through it to start looking for a diamond in the rough for do your job for you. That said, here I am again, oddly enough, defending the honor of people who would not do that for themselves. To my audience, I love you and I want to have your babies.